a recording. So we are recording tonight for those who wanted to attend but couldn't. So if you don't want your face shown on when we're doing Q&A, if you don't want your face shown, then don't turn your camera on. Let's see what else. Let's see. Let's make sure we don't have to hear the join and leave sound there. Sorry about that. But I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So the first part of this, we'll be talking briefly about youth librarianship programs at University of North Texas, which is typically children's and young adult librarianship or teen librarianship in a public library setting. And then the rest of the time, Dr. Tricia Kwan will be speaking to us about school library programs here at UNT. Okay, so I am Dr. Sarah Evans, and I am Assistant Professor of Youth Librarianship here at the University of North Texas. And so I'm excited to talk a little bit about our program. So as I mentioned, generally for youth librarianship, this is a career in a public library, working with children or working with adolescents and their families. A lot of colleges might also have a librarian in charge of youth literature, especially if there's a teaching program. So that's another workplace. I think these skills also are transferable into other organizations such as nonprofits, where maybe you are the education director. So there's a broader range of places you can work. So one of the first most important things is to dispel a myth, because as long as I've worked in libraries, which is since 1999, people say, oh, you work in a library. I love to do that. I love children's books, or I love young adult books. And I say, well, that's great, but do you like children or teenagers? Because it is not about the books for them. It's about the kids and the teens themselves and their families. And librarianship is about connecting people to the resources, what I call connections with context. So that's something that we emphasize in the core classes for our program, and talk about how to create a suite of services and different activities for people. And then the information is like part of that. Related to that, youth librarianship is a career that's all about being in the community. That was always one of my favorite parts of being a public librarian, because you get to know an entire family. And unlike school librarianship, where like if they leave your school at 5th grade, then you're kind of not with them anymore, but you can be someone's librarian their whole life if they live in the community. And you have the opportunity to the best librarians I know are focused on the community's information needs, the wants of the community, and how to ensure equitable access across the community. Which brings me to the last point. A major focus of modern youth librarianship is increasing access to resources for those in society who have the least access. So if you find these 3 concepts compelling, then you would enjoy being a youth librarian. So in our program, we focus on developing the skills and competencies outlined by librarians through the relevant subdivisions of the American Library Association. So the group that's generally over children ages birth to 11, for those kind of services, that is ALST, or the Association for Library Service to Children. And as you see here, this is their, and they actually just updated, so there might be new graphics. But essentially, you're establishing relationships, planning services, organizing programs and materials. That doesn't mean you have to perform and be the person running every program, but you're organizing that, and hopefully organizing, collaborating with local community organizations. And as well as you're an advocate for the needs of children and families in your community, as well within the library system. And it is an exciting job because you always have to continue to learn, because there's always more things coming out and different ways to approach topics and different ways to connect people. And definitely we've seen that in the last year with the pandemic, because we've had to be creative about how we interact with our patrons and our community and advocate for them and support them. Now, teen services librarianship. Now, some libraries, especially if it's a smaller library, you might be in charge of birth to 18. But if a slightly larger library, when they can, they'll usually try to have one that focuses on the younger set and one that focuses on the older set. The skills and competencies come from the Young Adult Library Services Association, also known as YALSA. And of course, you can find out more about YALSA and OSC on their websites. And again, very similar. This is basically the same list, except you're focusing on youth ages 12 to 18 plus. That's something that we're definitely finding more now, that the 18 to 25-year-olds have a special set of needs. So often a teen services librarian, in collaboration with an adult services librarian, will focus on that group and making sure that you can meet the needs of them. So why would you want to choose us? Our faculty are people-centered in both our research and the coursework. My own research looks at literacies and identities involved when we choose to learn on our own time in different places like fandom spaces or in public libraries. And I'm pleased to be part of a department of the university that is very student-centered, supporting people in achieving their dreams. There are 4 of us on the faculty that lead the multiple literacy labs, because we recognize that being literate today includes so many things: visual, cultural, data literacies. And so we infuse the research that we're doing into our courses and invite students who would like to work with us. And then, of course, one of the most important things is that the UNT Department of Information Science is accredited by the American Library Association and highly ranked amongst peers. So that means confidence. You can have confidence about getting a degree with us can take you to the next step. Because especially if you want to work in a public library, you need to have gotten a master's degree from an accredited program, which we are. So I'm always happy to talk to people more. My email is just sarah.evans@unt.edu. I do have an office in Discovery Park, which is a separate locale off campus, but I am starting to be there more often. So it's always better to email me or call my office to figure out when we might meet and talk some more. All right, so I'm going to stop my share. And Trisha, you should be able to take over.
Okay, great. I will share my screen then. Nice to see everyone here tonight. We are really glad to meet you. Sorry, that's the wrong one. I've got multiple screens going on. It's just let me start.
Don't we all the time now?
I know it's hard to find what is the screen that I really want. I'm really glad to meet you tonight, and I'm glad to talk to you about the school library program here at UNT. And Sarah already introduced me, but my name is Trisha Kwan. I am the Practicum coordinator for the school library program. I also teach collection development, and I teach the intro class, which is called School Librarianship. So the very first class you take, you would usually take with me, and the very last class you take, you would take with me too, which is the Info 5090 Practicum course. And I love being the bookends, and then I usually meet you somewhere in the middle as well. But I will share with you tonight some of the things that I really like about, number one, being a librarian, a school librarian in particular, and then number two, about UNT's program. And I'm in a kind of unique position. I have worked for TWU before. I've also worked for Sam Houston State University. So I'm familiar with all 3 programs. So I'm going to just tell you what I really like about our program because I know some of the things that we do differently that I think make it a really strong program and a good choice for anyone who's interested in becoming a school librarian, which takes us right to, now, by the way, these are pictures of UNT's campus. which is beautiful. So you'll see those pictures in the background in all of my slides, but you won't probably ever come to campus unless you come to graduate to the ceremony on campus, because all of the courses are online, completely online. But if you ever do come, it's gorgeous. And so I just want you to enjoy those pictures. Let's start with why should you become a school librarian? There are lots of reasons. There's a lot of talk these days about influencers. My kids, my little 10-year-olds even talking about influencers, and I want to be a YouTube influencer. And I'm like, what? Everyone can be an influencer these days, but what I love about school librarians is they really do make a huge impact. They can, if they do a good job, they can make an impact on every single student in the school, every single teacher. It's one of those unique positions where you are able to work with everyone and you can make a very huge splash. And that's one of the things that I really love about it. It gives you an opportunity to just let your creativity out, and anything creative you do, the students will love. They are always excited about new ideas. And one of the nice things about being in the library is you're not as constrained with these days. I know for those of you who are classroom teachers, it's like every minute of every day is plan. It wasn't always like that. For those of you who've been in education more than 25 years, like I have, you might remember back when it wasn't always like that. But these days, everything is so tight and there's just not time for anything extra. But in the library, it is not that way. You get to make your own lesson plans for the most part, which of course you're going to follow standards just like you would as a teacher, but you also have that wonderful opportunity to really do creative, fun, out of the box things with kids to get them excited about reading and to get teachers excited about the great resources that you have to offer. So let's talk for a minute about a couple other ways. Isn't that a beautiful flower? I love that. How do school librarians make a difference? There are several ways. One, they provide a welcoming environment. Really, and Sarah touched on this too, a librarian's job is all about customer service, because without customers, we don't have a job. The books we have to take care of course, and there's a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie to you, there's a lot of work about the books, but really it's about those customers, and they are like our clients. They are the people that matter, and so our job is to entice them, number one, because there are so many other things to do these days, as you know. But we want to build lifelong readers, and that is a challenge. But we know that the more you read, the smarter you are, the better you do in school, the more likely you are to have a job that you enjoy someday, the more money you're going to make. And there's this domino effect with being a good reader. And that's where librarians can step in and engage and encourage and provide really great reading and provide that welcoming environment. Sometimes we call it a safe space even. Some children, it's like that's what they really need, is somewhere to go where they can just chill a little bit. So that is one thing that we do. We also encourage enthusiasm for books, which is so much fun. There are a million ways to do this, and you will learn several of them in the coursework, because there are so many possibilities for things you can do to get kids excited about reading. And it really is a challenge because we're so busy these days, and kids are no exception. But that is part of what we do as a school librarian. We also collaborate. We collaborate with teachers. We collaborate with other librarians. We collaborate with the community. We collaborate with the administration. We collaborate with everyone that we can collaborate with. And this is also a challenge and something that we talk about as you're taking your courses, because as you know, some of you are probably teachers, you know how busy you are. And you're like, oh gosh, I just don't have time to collaborate. So there are some ways, that we make this work. That's something that we talk about. And the importance of it cannot be overestimated. It's so important to collaborate. And that's part of what we work on in our school library program. We also provide amazing resources, which of course includes great technology. It used to just be that the resources were about books. These days in the library, we are also technology experts. A lot of times we keep track of the technology. We also have maker spaces, which are amazing and another great resource for learning. So, and also part of our collection. There are so many other things that we do other than just provide books. But of course, that providing books is the most important thing that we do. It looks like that flower is talking right there. Isn't that funny? Placement of that is funny. We do stay on top of cutting edge trends because, wow, the library world has changed a lot. Just to let you know, I graduated in 1997 with my master's degree. Gosh, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? Okay, it sounds not that long ago. I mean, when I think back, but it's been a long time. So the technology we were talking about, we didn't, number one, even have email quite yet. We did soon after that, but if it was there, no one was checking it, that kind of thing. I mean, the overhead projector was pretty cool. That just tells you how much we've changed in the past, 23 or 24 years. But as a librarian, you really move with those trends too. You are that resource, that person who can provide professional development on campus. A lot of your assignments that you do within your coursework are designed to help you think about what you would do as an actual librarian. So the work that you do, one of the things I love about our program is it's not busy work. It's not like just jumping through hoops for the sake of jumping through hoops. These are the kind of things you will actually do as a librarian. So it's really helpful for you in terms of getting experience for the job that you would eventually have. It is the best job in the world. So that if you needed another reason, there it is. Being a school librarian is so much fun. Now, a lot of times you do help with like the testing, but as teachers, you know what the stress is like. If you are a teacher, it is extremely stressful. The whole starter test. Why are they even giving the starter test this year? Whole nother topic. Sorry, I don't mean to get off on a tangent, but it's just like crazy. You don't have to be in charge of that anymore in the library. Are you going to help out? Well, sure. You might be giving the test someone or somewhere, but as far as like being in charge and being responsible, no, that is not part of your job. But there are so many great hats that you get to wear as a librarian. It is fun, never a dull moment. Every day is a different day. And I just think you would love it. And I think you wouldn't be here if you weren't really interested. So I think this is a sign that you are here. There are 2 ways to become a school librarian. And this we're talking about in Texas. So if you're here from another state, every state has their own requirements. So you'll need to check with your state's requirements for what does it take to be a school librarian in your state, because we just keep track of Texas here. But I will tell you the 2 ways to become a school librarian in Texas. So number 1, if you already have a master's degree, which some of you may, any master's degree, if you already have a master's degree, you can just take the school library certification courses, and there are 9 of them. So that's 27 credits. That's possibility number 1. Number 2, if you don't have a master's degree, to be a school librarian, you must have a master's degree. And so if you don't already, I advanced accidentally. If you don't already have a master's degree, then you will want to do the Master of Library Science degree. And there's a concentration in school library if you choose that track. So you do need a master's degree, though, to be a certified school librarian in Texas. But remember, it doesn't have to be. It can be a master's degree in anything plus the certification. What I tell people, though, is because it's only like 3 more or 4 more classes to get the master's degree, it is so worth it to just go ahead, even if it's your second master's degree, because with that Master of Library Science degree, you can work in other types of libraries other than school libraries. We have had several students who've taught in university or worked in university libraries, worked in public libraries even. So that's a possibility. It just can open other doors, because as we've learned this past year, you just never know what will happen. All kinds of things can happen. So it's just nice to have options, I think. Now in Texas, I already said this, but I'm just going to repeat it because it's just important to remember. In Texas, you are required to have a school library or a master's degree to be a school librarian. And sorry, I've got this little picture in my way. And the school library certification courses. But if you don't have a master's degree, then you should do the Master of Library Science degree because you do need it. And that includes the school library certification courses. Now, remember that can differ from one state to the next. And these are a list. We are the Eagles over the mean green Eagles here at UNT. So there's a nice eagle for you. These are our certification courses, the 9 courses that I mentioned. And I mentioned also that I teach the first and the last, and then I teach this one in the middle too. I'm teaching this one. I have been teaching literature for youth, but we have a new faculty member who will start teaching that in the fall. So these are the 9 courses. So we have a great, fantastic group of advisors who will work with you every semester to help you set up your schedule and know that you're on track and know what courses you need to take and when. And so they are just fabulous. We're very lucky. Not every, the other universities I've worked at did not have that. So we're very lucky to have a fantastic advising department. And then I mentioned this about check with your state for your state specific requirements. Most states will require a master's degree to be a school librarian. And as Sarah said, our degree, our MLS degree is highly valued across the country. And we do have students from every state and even other places in the world as well. So if you have questions about that, feel free to email me too, and I will be checking my email every day. You do need to get B's or A's in all of your classes in order for them to count. So C's don't count. You have to have B's or A's in all of your courses for them to count towards your master's degree. And if you want to go ahead and earn the MLS degree, I mentioned this before, there are 3 additional courses to take, and they are called the core courses. And I think it's really worth taking them, even if it is your second master's degree, just because of that diversification that those courses will give you. All right, so let's take a look at a few frequently asked questions. Other than coursework, look at these flowers, aren't they so pretty? Other than coursework, what is required? So there are a couple of other things that I want to tell you about. One is the electronic portfolio. All of our students, if you're doing whether you're doing the certification or you're doing the master's degree, all of our school library students create an electronic portfolio. And it is basically a showcase of you as a professional in training. And within that portfolio, you are going to load a lot of your assignments. You're going to reflect through a blog about what you're learning and what you think about that. And then it kind of charts your growth over time. It's really fantastic. You start working on your electronic portfolio in the very first class that you take. And then you continue working on it throughout the program. And if you are a master's degree student, you would turn in your electronic portfolio, and the faculty, the information science department faculty, would evaluate it in your your final semester, early in that semester. And of course, much more information about this would be coming after you become a student. But that project is actually called your Capstone Project. For master's degree students, instead of writing like a thesis or taking a comprehensive exam, which is what we used to require, you now create this electronic portfolio, and that is your capstone project, and you do need to pass it in order to get your master's degree. For those of you who are just taking the certification only courses, then your electronic portfolio would be graded by me when you take your practicum course. So a lot more information about that will be coming later when you actually start your coursework, but it's kind of nice to know ahead of time. All right, so there is a practicum required in the school library program, and it's a 160 clock hour practicum. That would also begin in your very first semester in your very first class. The reason that we do that is because it's a lot of hours, and if you had to do it all in one semester at the very end, you would have to take off like half a semester, and that is just not feasible. For most people, it takes about 2 years or 5 or 6 semesters to finish your master's degree. So if you divide that 160 clock hours by the amount of months and by the amount of weeks, it would average about 2 hours a week of work. Now, during the pandemic, we are also offering a lot of ways for people to do this online, to work on collecting these hours at home. We also are hosting an international conference this summer, and you can get hours going to that conference, and it's online, attending it online. That's a great way to start off with a lot of hours. So that is one of the requirements. That is a state of Texas requirement. So every university will require this because it is required by the state of Texas. Also, if you are an out-of-state student, the practicum is still required. So we do require it for all of our students, whether they be in-state or out-of-state. And the main reason is because one great way to learn is through practice. You know, the more that you get to actually do the kind of things that you will need to do as a librarian, the better you will learn. So if you live in Texas, you will also take the Texas test, which that's TEXES, and that is the certification test to be a school librarian. And you take that in your final semester in your practicum course. What I like about this as compared to the way other universities do this, a lot of universities do not require this in a course. So you graduate and then you still have to take this test and pass it in order to get certified. Well, what if it's a hard test, so they don't prepare you necessarily. You've been prepared in your coursework, but they don't work with you to make sure that you're able to pass it. You're kind of on your own. But at UNT, we actually work with you until you pass it. Most people pass it the first time, but like all certification tests, it's not an easy test. And so we are just dedicated to help you basically get through this test and make sure that you pass it. So that's one of the things that I really do like about our program. So this takes us to why choose UNT. Look at this little white squirrel. Isn't he beautiful? So why choose UNT? We are ALA-accredited, which Sarah mentioned. So the great thing about that is that this degree, an MLS degree, even with the emphasis in school librarianship, would help you to be able to get a job in a public library or a university library if you wanted to choose to go that direction. Also, there's that going through that accreditation process is just grueling. We went through it recently, and they just check everything. I mean, they just check everything, and you just have to have crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's. So this gives you some assurance to know that we are teaching what we need to be teaching. It's up to date. It's based on the latest standards that are determined both at the national level and at the state level. Our practicum, which I mentioned before, I love the fact that our practicum begins in your first semester because it gives you time. If you end up in a school library sometime, because you can actually become a school librarian before you graduate, those hours in your own library can count. A lot of people, if they're already working in a school, will work on their hours in the library in their own school. So you can make this as easy as possible for yourself. But a lot of universities do this where you don't start the practicum until your final semester, which means you've got to cram a lot of hours in. I just don't know how people do that. It makes it very, very difficult. So I think this sets us apart a little bit. And then I mentioned already about the certification test and how important I think it is that without passing that test, the degree doesn't mean a lot because you can't work as a school librarian in Texas without passing this certification test. It is required in order to be certified in Texas as a school librarian. So we do help you. We have lots of resources and we help you to make sure that you are ready and that you will pass that test. Are all the classes offered online? Yes, they are. All of the classes are offered online. And one of the things I like about our program too that sets us apart is that every class is offered every semester. Have you ever been in that situation as a student where you're like, okay, I need these 5 classes, but if I've got to take these 2 next semester because they won't be offered again for like a year and a half. So if I wait, then what am I going to do? Do I have to take 5 classes next semester? You know what I'm talking about. It's like, oh, crazy. You don't have to deal with that here because every class is offered every semester. I love that. It just takes the guesswork out. It makes it a lot easier for you to do your planning and take the classes you need when you need them. It is very easy to apply. You can apply in 2 steps. First, you do need to apply to the graduate school. The graduate school at UNT is called the Toulouse Graduate School. By the way, the GRE is not a requirement, so you do not need to take the GRE in order to be admitted, but you do have to apply to UNT's graduate school. And this is linked, and I'll tell you in a minute how you can get a copy of this presentation because I'd be happy to share it with you. But I'm also going to give you the website where you can go to see this information as well. So you apply to the graduate school and you also apply to the Department of Information Science. And this link on number 2 links directly to the application for the Department of Information Science. So there's 2 applications, one to the graduate school, one to the Department of Information Science. And when you do fill out this application for the Department of Information Science, if you want to be a school library major, you would choose school library certification or a master's degree, Master of Science, and school library certification. So there's 2 options depending on, your situation. And if you have more questions, we have this website. Also, this is my email address, which I will put in the chat as well. And I'm going to put, let me find the chat here, just a second. Okay, I'm going to put my email address. I'm also going to put the information, the link to the Information Science Department website with the information about how to apply. This is my email address. And if you would like a copy of this presentation, I'd be happy to email it to you. If you just send me an email, then I will send it to you. And also keep that email address because I would be happy to also answer any questions that you might have. Tonight we're telling you a lot of things really fast, but questions might come to you. And I do not mind answering the same questions over and over. I know how it is to learn. We don't always remember everything the first time that we hear it. So that does not offend me at all. Please feel free to email me anytime. That is what we do. We are here to help. This is my job. I'm a teacher, just like most of you probably are. And I am here to help you and give you the information that you need. If I don't know it, then I will ask someone who does know it. And that is, how we will operate. So I am done. And what we really want to do is see, do you have questions? So why don't we, if you would like to type questions into the chat, that is fine. And if you would like to unmute yourself and ask questions out loud, that's great too.
Hey, Matt. Yeah, feel free to ask questions.
Oops, sorry. Ha! I thought I just unmuted. I was just curious how much of the courses were asynchronous and synchronous, because I'm working a day job, like you said. I'm a teacher during the day, so I was just kind of curious about that.
Sarah, do you want to answer or do you want me to?
So most of them are asynchronous, but I think it depends on the professor. Some professors do have like an evening meeting once a week that people are required to go to. Is that true, Tricia? I always do it asynchronously. So
you know what? So a lot of times the meetings that happen with some of the classes are optional, and if you're not able to come, they will record the meeting, and then you will have the link available. I don't require, if I do have a meeting, it's usually one time a semester. It's just to answer questions. And I tend to just post videos, informational videos with me talking and telling you the kind of things I think you want to know. And then of course, answering questions, but I do a lot of one-on-one meetings with students as well when there are things that come up. So, but it's not, in fact, I think we had a new requirement, didn't we, about being really careful about having those weekly meetings because a lot of times they can overlap.
Well, we've talked about it as a faculty. Yeah, just trying to make sure that students don't feel like stressed out that they're trying to go to 2 different professors' activities at the same evening. I do not know anybody who holds a master's class meeting during the day unless it's on like a mini semester or kind of situation. So yeah, I would say almost entirely asynchronous. There may be some synchronous interaction opportunities, but Jessica asked about I'm sorry, Matt, if you wanted to ask anything else.
No, I just said thank you.
Oh, okay. Jessica asked about the application deadlines. I would go to the website that Trisha has listed here to get that information. Unless Trisha, you have it with you.
You know what? I actually asked that question yesterday, but I never got a response. So TLA is happening this week, and I think maybe our advising office is just really busy.
The Texas Library Association conference this week, which is a huge to-do.
Huge. So I think I'm just on a delay getting an answer because I was thinking we still have some time.
Yeah, that's why we did it this month. I know.
Hi, Trisha and Sarah. It's Jeanette. I'm here.
Hi, thanks. Hey.
I just wanted to say that according to the website, the deadline for summer for domestic applicants is April 15th, and then it's June 15th for the fall. And so for the summer, I'm not sure if they are still accepting applications. It is a possibility. So I would recommend that you email CI admissions, and I will put that in the chat to find out if you can still apply.
Thank you so much. When you say all the courses are offered every semester, do you mean the summer too? Yes, generally. This is an unusual summer because of COVID. There was some squishing around with budget, but I think, Trisha, did we end up with all the school library courses offered?
Library courses are offered.
Oh,
yes.
okay. So we pulled it off.
Published that. And we were accredited based on that understanding that all of our courses are offered every semester. So all of the school library courses are offered in the summer and in the fall and in the spring.
The youth librarianships ones are a little different, and part of the reason I don't have the classes required up on the slide is because we're in the midst of changing the required courses, and so for youth librarianship. So and I didn't want to give false information. So so we asked about the deadline. Do you offer 2 summer semesters? So it depends on the professor and what they're teaching. So for example, I teach graphic novels and comics, and although I have taught it as a 3-week course, which was crazy, and I bless all those students who did it. Generally for a literature course, I'm going to do the 10-week, the longest semester I can get in the summer. Same with next summer, I'll teach diverse children's literature and young adult literature, and yeah, I wouldn't do it short. I don't know, Trisha, do you know if any of the other courses?
I don't think so. I think we all do the 10-week, and that's mainly because it's a lot of work, you know, and it's already in a condensed time frame. In the 10-week, it's usually a 16-week semester in the fall or the spring. So it's really to make it a little easier for the students. So
it's still fast, and it's still, yeah, I mean, that's why I'm like, I can't even believe we have done it, but it's because you're still the same amount of credit, so we can't take out anything during the summer. So it's the same content, but you're going from 16 to 10. So it is fast, but you know, we usually have a good time. And I know a lot of you are school teachers and you like taking in the summer, so I totally get that. For Capstone, it says the timing needs to be 70-30 or 60-20-20.
Okay, so I think you're talking about the practicum, Matt. about, is that right?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. So you need to spend, and most people go with the 70-30, which is a little easier. So the practicum is 160 hours. So that means that 70% of your time is spent at one level. So like if you're working in an elementary school, it would probably make the most sense to spend 70% of your time, which is 112 of those hours, at the elementary library. Then 30% of those hours need to be earned at the secondary level. So you would need to visit a middle school or a high school and earn 48 hours at a different school. And that again is a state of Texas regulation. So, and the 60-20-20 just means 60% one level, 20 another level, 20 the third level. So then you would divide the middle school and the high school levels.
And that's, yeah, sorry to do. I was gonna say, and that's for, I definitely need, sorry, I need to update my slides clearly. So you do a practicum for youth librarianship, but that's only 120. So it is 40 hours less, in case you're wondering. You are required to do youth services tasks though, because I'm not going to, I approve the practicums, and if you send me a practicum thing and it doesn't have that, I would be very distressed. How many people are accepted into the program? I am not sure about that.
Janine, do you know if we limit that unless there's, I mean, as long as you meet the requirements to be accepted, I don't think we say, oh, sorry, we have too many people.
Yeah, I'm not sure necessarily about the youth librarianship or the school librarian program. I'm not sure necessarily about that. But if the program does happen to be full, then they would ask you to defer to the next semester.
Yeah,
But yeah.
That's
But
a
I
good
don't
way
really
to
think
put it.
there's a, yeah, I don't think there's really a cap, I would say. For data science, I would say probably, but yes.
Yeah, it's more like you said, it's not so much a cap, it's a, okay, we'd love to have you as long as if you meet the requirements, but you may have to wait a semester or two if we're really full. It just depends.
But I have
Right.
seen add sections of courses in order to accommodate students to open up new sections. So that's always a possibility as well. If we were to reach our maximum in
Yeah.
And I think our advising department's really good to it, moving you around and saying, okay, well, you maybe can't take this class because it's full, but you can take this class instead, you know, your first semester. So they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many courses would you generally take each semester? That's up to the student. In my experience, people who are working full-time tend to take 1 or 2 a semester. And then maybe if you're free in the summer, they'll, go for more. So that's really, I think as long as you're taking 1 course, you're a student. So we don't require anything on that side. If I do the master's degree with school library cert, would you be able to work as a youth librarian in a public library? Yes. So at this time, the American Library Association basically is like, if you have gotten a master's degree in an accredited institution, you can work in the classification as librarian in a public library. So, yeah. What was the summer training you mentioned where you could get practicum hours? I will put a link. And even if you don't want practicum hours, we want you to come. We are hosting online the International Association of School Librarianship. So you can hear from and meet people from Hong Kong and Australia, and we've got people from all over. And so that you can use that for practicum hours, attending sessions, but then also, and didn't we just decide there was a special rate for?
Yeah,
we're trying to negotiate a special rate just for UNT students. What
if you're a UNT or student, you can just pay $30 to attend the conference, and it's a full week, and it's online. so and it's going to be great. I think I'm very excited about it, and that's happening July 12th through 16th. July 12th through 16th. But yeah, I think we were going to have it in Denton last summer, and then the pandemic came and we had to make different plans. But I think it's going to be a great event. So I think you would love it. And for those of you who do start this summer, if you're able to start this summer, there will actually be assignments and classes related to the conference too.
Yeah, I'm excited. The next question was about how long does it generally take to get through certification program? I think I heard you say 2 years. Did you take
a lot of our students can do the full master's degree in 2 years. Well, and of course it depends on if you sit out the summer, and
if you're working full time. Yeah, if you only take one class, it's that. Yeah, so it's very hard to say.
It is. So it's 9 classes for just the library certification. So if you just took one class every semester, it would take you 9 semesters. But if you took 2 classes every semester, then it would take you a much shorter period of time. So, you could finish in 4 or 5 semesters if you were taking 2 courses a semester, which is pretty standard, I think. 2 courses. I mean, I meet a few people now and then, especially who might take more in the summer, because they're not working if they're teachers, but generally 2 classes is what most people do. I see Carol has her hand up. She's been sitting so patiently.
Sorry. I was focused on the chat, so that's good. Carol?
Oh, sorry. I think I hit the wrong button because I'm not used to doing Zoom on my phone. I'm used to doing it on my school computer. So I think I was just hitting the chat. So you can put my hand down.
Oh, okay.
Carol is that student.
I am that student pressing the wrong button.
And then to answer, Sonali, you had a question about could you get a librarian job before graduating? I presume you're talking about school. With Youth Librarian, it is possible. It depends on the library system and their requirements. But then for school, it's possible too. But again, it's a certification issue, Trisha.
So what you have to do, you once you are to the point in your degree where you are going to finish within 12 months, you are going to graduate within 12 months, you could take a job. So we have, for instance, we have students who are starting maybe in the fall. By the time they're going to graduate next May, maybe, they're not going to graduate this May, but in the fall, they could take positions as school librarians because they will be graduating within 12 months. There is a 1-year probationary certificate for school librarians in Texas. So you can get that certificate. And in that case, the graduate school would give you a special letter for your school district to say that I'm on a plan, I'm working towards this. They would send your transcript, to show that you're actually getting a master's degree. And they would say, the graduate school in this letter would say, and it's called a deficiency plan. It would say, and you're going to graduate, you're projected to graduate by this day and this time. And so then districts will hire you. We have quite a few students who are right now working as school librarians, but they haven't yet graduated. It puts a little pressure on you, but a lot of us, I did it when, when I worked my first job too. So it's done all the time, but, and that is something that Texas allows. It used to be that you only had to have 6 credits to work in a school library, and then you had 3 years to finish, but Texas changed their requirement. So now you only have 1 year to finish. So as long as you're far enough along that you could finish your coursework within a year, then you can get a job as a school librarian.
And then Jessica asked about the Youth Librarianship. So yeah, I think I mentioned, it's the Youth Librarianship does have a practicum. Every master's student has to do a practicum, but it's 120. Yes, Trisha. Yeah. All of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, did I say the wrong number?
Now the difference between that one and the school library one is that, well, now, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, because I believe those students usually go into my practicum class as well, and they do their practicum in 1 semester. My general practicum students, does it work differently for the youth librarian?
I think that's what we have going right now. You and I need to meet and talk about that. But and then you can, so unlike the school library one. For the youth librarian one, you can get a waiver for the practicum, but you have to have been working in a you have to have been working for in a library for a certain amount of time, and you need to have shown that you've done activities with youth. And that's what I meant. I was thinking of the practicum earlier. I sign off on those practicums and I turn them right back around if people are like, oh, I just worked the circulation desk. You know, you need to be doing stuff with kids in your job to substitute that for your practicum. Nicholas has a hand up.
Yes, hi, good evening. My question was, since I've already been advised, they advised that you do the school certification courses first and then the master's portion. With that, if you do go through the school certification courses and complete those, will your certification still be withheld even if you haven't completed the master's courses yet?
Unless you already have a master's degree. So if
Okay,
you
with that,
already
I
have a-
do. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a master's degree already, Nicholas?
No.
So you do in Texas, you're required to have a master's degree in order to be certified. Now you can get that 1 year probationary certificate though, and that gives you a year to get your full certification, which if the master's degree is the only thing, you know, holding you back from the full certification, then that's what a lot of people do if they're going to take the core courses last, which is fine. A lot of our students some take them first, some take them last. And that's okay either way.
And then there's, oh, am I understanding correctly that there's only room for one elective in the school library cert program? I believe that is true.
Yes, it is. It is true. And part of that is because we do have a practicum course, even though you're not doing all of your practicum hours in that course, that final practicum course gives us a chance to wrap up everything that you've been working on during your whole program. So it's very helpful, and it also gives us a chance to help you with the certification exam. So yes, you just do get one elective. Now you're welcome to take others, of course, too. I mean, you can take as many courses as you want to. I used to do that when I was a student. It used to be that we paid one rate for full time. So I would just take extra classes that I was kind of interested in. So that's, you're welcome to take as many as you would like, but only one elective is required for the master's degree.
And also, so what one thing that happens is we have a youth librarianship certificate program that's like a four course program. And so a lot of school librarians, they will double, they will do that and take, like, because they overlap, because like 5420 is something for school librarianship and for the youth librarian cert. They'll kind of like maybe take 2 electives so they can get, then you're like, you have a special certificate saying that you have skills around youth librarianship, and then you're also a school librarian. If you're not starting the program until the fall, would you still be able to use the summer conference as a practicum credit? That's a good question, Trisha. I just realized we probably shouldn't have said all that. I'm like, oh, crud. Now, to be fair, is the student rate is still really cheap?
That's a question I'm going to think about. How what we do with the practicum is we have like a timesheet, and this is again a state of Texas requirement, and with that timesheet you have to date it for when you do various tasks. So if you start, of course, in the fall, but you're having hours that came before you start, then they might raise an eyebrow and say, let me though ask my boss. So that's Kelly. Would you mind emailing me tomorrow, and I'll ask her, and I'll get back to you. If you'll send me an email, then I'll have your email address, and I'll see if that's ever been done, because wouldn't that be nice?
Yes, it would be.
Nice.
And Yeah, definitely. Just to be sure, 160 hours are required for certification, only 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
With a youth librarian degree and school library certificate, it's still 36 hours. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but yeah.
I guess I was just kind of curious because I really like, I guess with the school library certificate, it's just a general degree, but I also like the youth library side of it. Is that even a possibility, or is that kind of splitting things?
Well, I would get go for the school library masters, which is that whatever number we just said, 36. And then there's a youth services and library certificate that is for courses on top of that. And so people, then you can have both is the best way. So I do the school librarianship program and then pop on the youth services certificate. So for example, we're gonna put it in here. Right, so and again, this is changing slightly, but you know, you already, school library people already take 5420. And so then, they can weave in one of the other courses. Like I have a lot of, even though Info 5445 is directed towards public librarianship, a lot of school librarians take it. So, because then they can get that certification.
Thank you.
Sure.
Nicholas, your hand is still up. Did you have a question?
Oh, or did I just?
No, I just didn't know how to lower it. I don't know if that was something on your end, because
I think either of us can do it, but I'll go ahead and do it.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Sorry. We left you with your hand hanging all that time. Any other questions?
Hey, I had a quick question for you. I don't have a master's degree right now, but I do have a doctorate degree in physical therapy. Would a doctorate degree be eligible, or does it have to be a master's degree?
For the school librarian thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Well, gosh, I would think so, but that is a question I've actually never had. That's Janine, do you know? Have we ever had that happen?
I don't know. I would refer that question perhaps to advising.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's and did we put the advising email address in here? I'll go ahead and type it in to the chat. So I mentioned that we have a really amazing advising office.
We do.
Advising. So that's their email address in the chat. And Travis, they might be able to help you with that. I would think yes, that would, it seems, obvious to me, but that's just a question I have not ever heard before, but I would think that would count. Yes.
All right. I'll send him an email tomorrow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure. If I did the master's degree in school library certification, the master's would allow me to work in a public library or university as well. Yes. So public libraries and university libraries, and I'm like, basically they accept you have to have the master's from an accredited institution, and it's only the school library that has like extra strings attached, but for school and for public and university it's fine. And some people move between, and some people move, I mean, I was both a public librarian and a school librarian at different points in my life. And I've definitely had colleagues who've moved between, or people who've moved like in between academic and public. So, I always say my general advice for career is if you're really determined that you want to work in like one specific kind of library, unless it's a school library, because there's so many of those, but then you have to be flexible about where you want to live. But if you're like, I'll do any kind of librarianship, I just want to stay in this area, then you're great, because you could you know, you can pop into those different environments. What I was going to check is I know, so for example, I from Seattle, and so when I got my master's degree at the University of Washington, the Secretary of State sent you a certificate and said that you were a certified librarian. So I'm not sure if that happens in Texas. Something must happen, but essentially, yeah, your transcript shows that you can work in that classification.
Well, in Texas, for school librarians, you have to apply for certification.
Yeah, well, no, for school librarians in Washington too, but for like just for getting through the masters, they're like, here's your thing.
Oh,
yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah, I don't think I had to apply, but it was, yeah, the school librarian thing's a lot different. So. Other questions?
I just had a quick one. Can you just speak on, I guess, the future job market of just libraries in general, school libraries and public?
School and public. Thanks, Allison. I'm like, who gets to tackle it first? That is a great question. I would say that it's good for public libraries in the sense that, especially if you have some experience with youth services, because often, like in the smaller libraries, like if they're going to have to reduce down, they're going to want to keep somebody who can do a range of things. And so if you're able to do children's programming through adult programming, then you are a much more valuable asset. I think it's a harder question to answer right now because of COVID, but I mean, just from my professional contacts, people have been laid off, furloughed, but I haven't heard of like library closures or like major staff reductions. That hasn't happened. And I have not heard of it happening here in Texas. And then academic librarianship. Every university wants to have, and every college has a library. So that's pretty stable. And I think of school librarianship, especially in Texas, as being pretty dang stable, but Trisha knows better.
Definitely it is. And in fact, for many years, we had a shortage. In 2010, there was a bit of stress, I guess you would say, in the school library world, because that was right after following the housing market collapse in 2007, 2008. So when property taxes are severely restricted and they decreased greatly during that time, that affected what schools could do as well. So they were really looking for a lot of ways to cut their budgets back then, and so that was a worry then, but it wasn't a terrible thing even then. So what we've been seeing in Texas, particularly in larger school districts, is that there's always a need. And in fact, during the pandemic, a lot of people have retired. I think it was kind of for people who, you know, maybe could have retired 10 years ago, you know who they are. Because, and the thing about when you become a librarian, you might stay forever because it's really that great a job. So what tends to happen when things got very dicey with the pandemic, there were a lot of people who said, okay, I think I'm ready. You know, this seems like the moment I need to retire. So we've seen more jobs available lately, but I've not heard from students saying I'm not able to ever find a job. So that has not been an issue in Texas for the school library job market. As far as the cost per course, I see Carol's. Janine, do you happen to have the link for that calculator that there's that credit hour calculator that I know is on the website? There you go. Thank you, Janine. Put it in the chat. So that'll help you figure out about how much it costs. And by the way, I did do some calculations not too long ago because I know TWU is always saying how they're the cheapest. And here's the thing. They're a tiny bit cheaper, but it's not very much. I mean, it's fairly insignificant. And the great thing I think about our school library program compared to theirs is that we focus more on school library content. Theirs is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, because you might know better, but theirs is a little bit more general than ours for school libraries.
It is. Yeah, I think you could say that because there's only 3 dedicated at TWU. There's only 3 dedicated courses
for school libraries. So 3 compared to 9. So that means a lot of your courses there would be very general. And then at Sam Houston State, I've worked there before too, and they actually cost more than we do. And they are not ALA accredited. So that's interesting to me. I'm like, how are they getting away with that? so I think UNT is a great bargain. Now, it's not cheap, of course. This, you have to think of this as an investment, honestly, in your future. That is how I thought of it when I became a librarian. And Sarah, you might have felt that way too. I mean, I felt like I was investing in my future and what I wanted my future to look like. And I have never regretted it a single day. It was a great investment. And I haven't always had great investments, but that was a good one.
I do not know about the online from in-person price. I thought it was graduate school is just the same price, whether it's in person or online, but that's a good question for advising.
If there's like a distance learning fee or something like that.
I don't think there is anymore. I didn't think there was, but I might be wrong. So that'd be a good question for advising. Especially now everything's so, online, hybrid, it's all mixed, And Leslie has a lovely question. The librarian at my kids' school seems to be responsible for all the technology in school also. Is technology training part of the certification? Interesting.
Yes. So we talk about technology in every class, really. Even in my youth literature class, I have my students use technology and do different things. I mean, that is the world that we live in. Now, what's interesting, I'm seeing a lot of schools now, depending on the school district and the size of it, where they do have dedicated technology instructors. I've even seen schools that have a dedicated makerspace teacher, which is interesting. I love having the makerspace in the library, but the more helping hands you can get, yay. But that is definitely part of it. We, almost every class will incorporate technology and how to use different programs, what's hot out there, what people are using. One of the things I did as a school librarian was provide training for teachers on new technology, new apps, things to make your life easier, things to use in your teaching to make it better, things to get kids more interested. So that was part of something where you can really fill a big gap in a school. It's a great question, Leslie.
Any other questions?
I had one more question. So I was looking at trying to find the dates for like fall, spring, summer. On the UNT website, they've got a couple of different terms listed. So there's like there's a fall 8-week 1, 8-week 2. There's a couple different dates for different spring semesters, different fall semesters. Is there somewhere that we can find the start dates and end dates just to see how well it lines up with our current school semesters?
UNT, I bet they haven't. Usually they publish an academic calendar, and you have like a year and a glance kind of thing. I think UNT, like a lot of places, have been slow to commit to the dates for the semesters because they need to decide if they're going to cut it off at Thanksgiving or things like that.
Okay.
Because of COVID. So generally the semester starts around August 20th to 25th, usually is when it starts. Usually ends the first or second week in December. And then spring semester is usually like mid-January until early May. So.
Okay. And the summer semester, because I see it, I'm looking at the UNT calendar dates for 20 to 21, but it looks like they've got a couple different options for summer semester. How long is the summer
It's
semester for this program?
Almost everybody in our department does 10 weeks, which is the longest you can do in the summer. Same content that we cover in 16 weeks, so it's condensed. I don't know anybody in the school library or youth library related classes that does the 5-week or 3-week option. Not anymore. We did have somebody who taught diverse literature in 3 weeks for children and young adult, but we're not going to do that anymore.
Okay. So
I'm in charge of that, and it's not happening. We're going to do that every 10
I
weeks.
think it's June 1st this summer, June 1st or 2nd, Travis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right
Is
about
that kind of like a course by course basis where different instructors choose?
For the summer, it is the schedule for the summer.
Okay.
It is. We get a
Okay.
choice, but during obviously the regular semester is regular semester.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think
And
that's all for
usually
questions
the
for me.
content is due like around the beginning of August for like the very last assignment, because we have to have time to grade too before we turn in our grades. And like when the semester officially ends for you, then our grades are due like after the weekend. So we try to, allow ourselves a little more time than just 2 days, if depending on, how many classes we're teaching.
Okay. Yeah, they kind of shuffled around our our yearly schedule to mix in intersessions for fall,
Yes.
spring, and summer. So we've got a little bit shorter summer. So I'm just wondering if my finals for my education will be lining up with the start of the year for my students, which would just be like the craziest 2 weeks of my life.
Right, absolutely. And because a lot of school districts in Texas do start pretty early. For a while we'd gone back to starting like later in August, but it seems like they're starting earlier and earlier in August now again.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thanks. Isabel, what do these board designated and board authorized tuition mean, and how are they differentiated?
Board designated tuition.
I am not sure. I know graduate tuition is different than undergrad tuition. That again is a good question for advising. Statutory tuition board. Yeah, I don't board designated, board authorized. I've been in higher ed for a long time, and I'm not really sure what they mean by that. So.
And I will say too, we do have a lot of scholarships. You can't apply before you're a student, but after you are a student, and usually in March, we go through that process of awarding for the next year. And it seemed like we got an email this year that said, hey, we need more students to apply. So I think there's a lot of scholarship possibilities as well. So I encourage you, if you do sign up and become a student, make sure and apply for scholarships, because I think there's quite a few. So there's some nice opportunities there.
Awesome.
Oh, a hotline. That's nice. A hotline to answer.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a good idea, because
we did not come prepared to talk about tuition, Sarah.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it. I should have known. I should have thought of that.
And the world of tuition is always changing, so that's probably why they have a hotline, because they're like, professors are never going to know what to do about that. So we'll just let the specialists take care of that one. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks. And feel free to reach out if you have questions around school library stuff. Trisha is the best contact. Youth librarianship stuff is me. And then our advising people are lovely. So really, I mean, I've worked a lot of places, and yeah, ours are pretty dang good. Yeah, everybody's welcome. Good.
Thank you for coming. This probably wasn't exactly what you wanted to do on your Wednesday night. Thanks for coming, everyone. It was nice to see you, or at least to see your names on the screen. I'm getting used to this kind of thing, and are you, Sarah?
Well, for this kind of information sessions, one thing, but doing it all the time, I'll be ready to do faculty meetings. I Look forward to sitting at a table with my colleagues. I miss that.
Yes, I do too. It's been a long time. Good
Yeah.
to see you all. Stay well.
Yeah. Stay well, everyone. Oh, I need to hit the, well, I guess if I end it, it'll stop the recording.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Good night.
Bye.